Filters are some of the most important things inside of Power BI. And today I'm going to show you 5 different techniques where you can display what filters are being used inside of a specific report. From using a text box with different formatting options to using a multi-line card or a single line card, as well as having the ability to show how many different columns are being filtered, as well as just adding the filters to a tooltip. These will be 5 different ways that are going to be inspired by both Gustav Dudek, who posted the single line method, as well as Said, who has actually posted a really interesting method using SVGs. We're not going to be using SVGs. We're going to replicate this using a text box. But if you want to follow along, you can go to my GitHub, which will be in the description, and just download this showing filter starter Power BI file, which will have all of the different measures that I'm using. It's not completely necessary, but if you want to just build the actual report that I'm making, this will be the easiest way. The data I'm using is going to be the sample data that exists inside of Power BI. If you open up a blank reports and you just load sample data from the use sample data option, it's going to give you these financials. This is all I'm going to be using. It's just a very simple data set that has, I believe, like 700 rows. And it's just a single table that has some things like segment, country, product, discount band, etc. We're actually only going to be using these first 4, segment, country, product, and discount band, as the filters. And we're just going to try to make this in one go. So let me just duplicate this from my existing report, and I'm going to remove all of these values, and we're just going to get started. Okay, so I'm just moving to the actual starter file that's in my GitHub so that it's more consistent with what other people are doing. Okay, so the main thing to think about here is that we have these 4 different columns that are being used in slicers. They're just regular slicers, and there's nothing changed with them except for the fact that we've put on slicer settings and turned on the select all function. Now what we're going to do is you have to understand that when you want to show the actual items that are selected in your filter, the easiest way to do this is to use external tools. There's such a thing called DAX Studio, which I will also link in the description, which is an amazing tool from SQL BI. And that's why you might have seen articles from SQL BI about how to actually show the filters in your data. And what you can do is if you go to, it's like just open up DAX Studio, right click on whichever table that you want, and then there'll be an option here called define filter dump measure or define filter dump measure all tables. If you do this, define filter dump measure, what it's going to do is it's going to create a measure for you, which is going to have essentially all of the DAX that you will need. I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy this all the way up to, it's like here, and I'm going to make a measure. Now we already have this measure in here, but I'm going to just show you exactly what this does. First, what we have to do is we have to remove, it's like name. We have to make the name proper. And then you can actually see that this is code that you might have recognized from a whole bunch of different places, because this is a very old technique. It's been around for quite some time. Basically what it's doing is it's telling me that within a specific column or measure, it's going to take all of the filters. If the actual column is filtered, it's going to find all the filters, count them, add them, it's like take the top items from there, concatenate them into a piece of text. If it's more than a set number, if it's more than 3, it's going to say there are the top 3 items and there's a total of 10 items selected or something like that. And then it's going to return the value with a new line. So what this actually looks like is if I create this, dump filters financials value, and I just put it in here, and let's make this into a text box so it's a little bit easier to see. You can actually see that right now it finds what items are selected. So this is really nice because you can see that if I select anything, it will identify which column has been selected, as well as which items are being selected. This is the base for this entire video, and this has been around for a long time. You don't need to use any selected values or anything like that. It's just using this specific pattern. If the column is filtered, find the filters and add them together. Now, due to the fact that out of the box, it does limit the number of things that are visible. So if there's more than 3 items, you can see that what it does is it says there's 3 items selected, but actually 4 items are selected in total. So we're going to go through how we can modify this to actually use it, it's like in our actual data set. DAX Studio, one thing I will say is it's an external tool. You just need to download it and it should show up in your external tools folder. Sometimes there are problems with it showing up, but realistically, you shouldn't have too much problems if you just try downloading it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to show that the DAX Studio Original, we've actually removed all of the different columns that aren't necessary for us. So we've put in country, discount band, products, and segment. And you can see that the dump filter, it's like financials, throws out everything, including things like COGS and dates and, discounts. These are actually sums, or these are facts inside this table, and we're not going to be using them inside of the, it's like filters. So we can just remove those. And I've just removed this so that it only shows the 4 different items that we want. And you just throw that right in here. Sorry, if we throw this in here and into the table, we'll see that it's basically exactly the same thing. There's no changes there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to modify it a tiny bit to create, to show every single item. In order to do that, basically what we do is instead of having filters, count rows, top n, concatenate x, we simply need to remove count rows and top n, because we're no longer going to be trying to filter just to the top 2 or 3 items. If you want to show everything, all you need to do is just remove these 2 lines. So once again, remove the R and the T, the count the rows and the top n table. And in the in this line here, in the concatenate X, just change the T to an F, and it's just going to concatenate all of the filters. As well as we're going to remove this item here. This is if the row number is larger than the max number of filters that you've placed, then it's going to, it's like output something else. We don't need that. And if we do that in the DAX Studio Original for the country, you'll be able to see that if we throw this in here, again, let's remove this. Let's just take a look at country, because that's the only one that we changed. If we select multiple items, we can see all of them. That's all that I want, because for intents and purposes, that's what this does. Okay, so you can actually see that there's also a little bit of filtering that's been changed. Instead of looking like financials country, I have changed it so that it just looks at country and things. Now, you might ask, why is this bold inside of the DAX? And that's actually possible using a technique that you can actually use to modify your LinkedIn posts as well. And just for you to be able to see, I'm using something called Taplio, which is actually where I used to use a lot of my, it's like LinkedIn posts, where I would just write something and then you could modify it to be bold, italics, underlined, whatever. But the cool thing about this is that it's actually bold in Unicode, and that allows you to basically copy this text, which has been modified, and place it inside of your, let me copy that, Control C, Control V, and it makes the item bold. This actually doesn't just happen inside your DAX, but you can actually see that if I bring this in to a table or a card, let's just make it into a table for now, the country value is actually bolded now, and that is a very cool thing that you cannot do unless you do this little trick. So that means that we can apply a little bit of formatting inside of this text, and instead of using, like square brackets, we're using, just parentheses. Okay, so this is all filters multi-line, and it's multi-line because if I added more items, you can see that's the different columns or the different filters start at a new line. But maybe you don't have that, it's like amount of spacing. And what you need to do is you need to put in all filters that will become, let's change this back to a table just so that you can see it. That will just be in one single line. Now, the benefits of doing this is that you don't actually want to show stuff like this inside of just a table. There are different ways that you can show this inside of a table, but I prefer using the new cards. And if we select the new cards, let's just make these 2 right here. We'll put 1 in here, and we'll put the all filters. We will go into call out values, make the values much smaller, get like 20 or something. Well, okay, that seems to be fine. Make the text wrapped. Oh God, okay, back to 12. Change the font. It doesn't really matter too much. But get rid of the labels, and that's basically it. We can also just make it, it's like top laid out. And that will basically show things on a new line each time. That can be very nice, but it might be that you don't have enough space. What if, it's like you only had like this much space and you're not showing all of the values? Those are things to think about when you're, it's like making this kind of stuff. But if we do this, and instead of doing it, I'm just going to copy and paste this. We'll also remove background and the border so that it just fits into the background here. We click on an item, use this, it's like nice brush button here. You can change the similar visuals to have the same formatting, which is nice. Okay, but if we move this here, instead of having multi-line, we use this one, which is the all filter single line. You can actually see now that this is slightly different. It's a different flavor if you want to be able to show everything on one specific line. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I do think, it is something that could be useful for some people, especially if you have something that's like a bit longer and you can, if you want to put something in a wider vertical space than a horizontal space, this is probably a preferable way to do things. Okay, but for now, we're just going to move it back here. Okay, so that's totally fine. Now, the one cool thing about this is that if you actually did want to make this look slightly different, we have this here where, it's like the actual version here is just all colored slightly differently. And we can do this inside of the new card if we decide to do something with the formatting. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take out the all filters single line. It doesn't really matter what it is. Right now, I'm just throwing in a blank measure where the measure just returns a blank value. And I'm going to the callout values. I'm turning off the values as well as the label. And then I'm going into reference labels. In the reference labels, I'm adding blank as the label. And the reason that I'm doing that is because what I want to do is I want to turn the title off, but in the value, I can set whatever value that I want. So I'm going to put in current selection. Now you can, of course, make this conditionally formatted. It really doesn't matter too much. I'm going to make this bold. And once that's done, I'm going to go back to callout values, go to the layout and make this 0% callout size. That will remove the top section. So everything is just basically the reference label. We'll also go and turn off the visual borders, and inside of the reference labels, we will make sure that when all is selected, turn off the background. That's basically where I want to go. Now I'm going to go to the reference labels, select the blank again, and with the blank selected and the label selected to blank, we can go down to details, turn this on, and add data. What I'm going to add is this single line. And the reason that I want to do it in this way is because I want to add font color. The font color that you can use here really doesn't matter. You could just have like a specific font color. Let's just take this one for example, and then make the background and the font color something like this. And this will be honestly good enough that you have a very nice, it's like different way of showing, your current selection. And let's say nothing is being selected right now. You have these dashes that show up as, it's like the regular place for show blank as, and you can take this show blank as and change that to nothing selected, for example. And that would also be fine in order to show people that nothing has been selected. No filters are applied. Okay, so that is that. And those are a couple different ways. Now I can show you the regular way, because now we have some filters applied. The most relevant way that people would be, able to see filters is just the inbuilt way where we have this filter button and you can see all of these things. It's like which item is being selected. It is a pop-up kind of. It does take up a lot of space. So sometimes I don't really like using this, and sometimes I have issues with the fact that it won't disappear. But this is a different method to just show the data all of the time. And one thing that you can do is you can take this a little bit further using text boxes. Now, this is a technique that I don't always recommend, but it is a way to get to do something like this. Not sure how easy you, yeah, okay, now it's visible. This is from Saeed, and he basically made this as the actual, as the way to show how many items there are. And you can see that, it's bolded, there are different colors and things like that. And although he says that he did this with SVGs, I'm going to show you a way you can do this just natively with text boxes. So we're going to insert a text box. So we go to insert, we insert a text box. And with a text box, all that we really need to do is prepare a little. So you can see that right now we have, it's like these different items, and we're going to be doing this based on the multi-line. But if we look at the multi-line, what we actually need to do in order to get to a, it's a formatted point is split all of this up so that we can see all of the different data sets, all of the different parts of the string, so we can format them separately. And for that purpose, I've created different, it's like parts of the measure, which is basically, it's like going to say, is the item filtered? So is country filtered? Then we can show the country, it's like tag. If and the max filters have been set to 2 to only show 2 different items. And if there's more selected, then it'll show a certain number of items selected. But here we have basically country is 2, and basically return to me the concatenation of these 2 items, and it's like this value and. You don't actually need the X part here. This isn't being used. So that's exactly what it should look like. In our third measure, we basically say if it is filtered and there are more than 2 items, basically just concatenate all of these items and return the value of items subtracted by 2, so that you're basically showing the number of items. So is it like 2 more or 3 more? And then at the end, we have 1 parentheses that will show up or not. And this sounds a little bit convoluted because we're basically taking this item and just chopping it up into multiple pieces. And the way to actually include that inside of your text box is first we click on the value, and then we just have to search for this measure. So country 1, save, and you can see this is country. Now, this is a little bit annoying because if I click, it's like, again, sometimes it will still reference the previous one. So it can be a little bit difficult. So the easiest way to deal with formatting all of this, in my opinion, is I'll make this size 12, is just create new lines. And on the new line, click on the value, look for the second one, country 2, save. So that's Canada, France. It's like go to the new line, value, country part 3. Here, it might not show anything, which is okay because right now it's not returning any value. And then go to country 4. If you write country and you don't see anything, you can just click on show more, and then 4 shows up. And now all of these things, we're going to make to size 12. We're going to make country, this part here, bold. We're going to make this part here. We're going to make that, let's say, dark blue, as well as the parentheses at the end, dark blue. Now, this item here, we're going to make this red and bold. And then at the end of all of this, what we're going to do is we're going to go and I've clicked right here next to the country, but you don't see the, it's like text or anything. That's fine. Just click here and click on delete so that you are putting all of this into one line. That's great. That's exactly what I want. So that now that if we have this set up for country, the end result is that if I click 3 items, then it'll show 2 plus 1 more, and they're all in different fonts. Now, you can see that when inside of the desktop, when they're not selected, there's this icon that shows up, which, it's like is a little bit, looks a little bit weird, but inside of the actual, report, that goes away so that you can see when nothing's selected, there's just nothing there. And that's what it looks like. I'm going to do this for the rest of the items, which is basically just, find all of these different items and put them in here, which is like value, discount band 1, save, go to the next line, discount band 2, save, discount band 3. And you can kind of see why I've called them, it's like this, discount band 2, 3, 4, etc. because it's just a lot easier to find what the next item is. And you can also kind of see that this is a lot of effort to, it's like make them slightly look different. Whereas, the text modification technique might be good enough for most people. I'm just letting you know that this is a way that you can change everything at once. And I think it's really nice, to be able to have this much flexibility in how you want to show your data. All right, just keep going. One. Okay, so now that I have all of the different items there, I'm going to just make them all size 12, and I'm going to make all of them, the right format. Make all of the titles bold. Yeah, this is a little annoying because sometimes when you select this, it doesn't necessarily show that it's selected very easily. And, it's like we can go here, make the formats all proper, and it just takes a little bit of time. It's honestly a lot of work for, it's like what it is, in my opinion. But let's take a look right after we're done modifying everything. I go here. And now all we need to do is just make sure that in the formatting, we turn the background off, this here. And that's basically it, right? And it looks really neat and is a very nice way to be able to show all of the different data sets. But let's take a step back. These are 3 different ways. Now let's show, and it's like, of course, the other way is, showing this. So those are 4 different ways, kind of. But let's show you one other way where you can see, it's like based on the tooltip, this value. So all of these different things are filtered here right now. And let's say you want to just show the tooltips. If you have a new card, for example, you have this area called tooltips, and we can put in all filters multi-line here. We're going to rename this to be called filters with a comma, well, not a comma, with a colon. And if we do that, then what we can do is if you're hovering over this on, it's like tooltips properties, you can see that the filters here actually shows with bold as well, showing the different items. Now, if you put in just the regular one, like the DAX Studio Original instead, you can actually see the difference is, it's like pretty substantial. You actually see that just the bolding makes a big difference in the filters. And I think it looks pretty nice. And another thing that you can do with this is you can change the tooltip values. Not the values, the way that it looks. So let me take, for example, this dark item, make it 5% transparent, and turn all of the text white. This is a very different look than how it usually is. So instead of, just going white, let me just throw it in here too, so you can see the difference. Filters multi-line, turn on the tooltips. So, the standard one looks like this, but you can make it look like this if you so chose, not a big deal, but looks pretty cool. And the final thing that I'm going to show you is this one thing that I've added here, which for that, we're going to need a couple different things. First, we're going to turn on a card. We're going to put in blank data, so nothing's showing. We're going to turn off the background, turn off the values and the label. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the image. And in the image, we're going to change it to image URL because I have included a filter icon. This is a bit of, it's like a base64 text of a filter. And we're just going to take this image URL, which is a filter icon, which shows a simple filter that is going to just basically give us a little bit of extra information. Is there anything filtered? Right now, there's not. Okay, let's go to the cards and make everything turned off. That's pretty nice. What I want to do is I want to show people how many items are being filtered. So if we go here, we can actually see if one column is filtered, it shows 1. If nothing is filtered, it just shows X. And if we show that 3 things are filtered, yeah, that's the kind of interaction that I want so that I can show people how many things are filtered. To show this, what I have is a slicer that shows number of filters. I'm only using these 4 columns, so I basically just put in if this is filtered, count it as 1. If the other column is filtered, count it as 1. Add them all together and make it into text. Making it into text is important because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shape, a circle. Well, it's an oval, but I'm going to make it into a circle and just make it very, very small. Put it right here, just over that circle in the icon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the shape style. The fill is going to be a function. So if the item is filtered, if any items are filtered at all, I want it to be transparent. And if not, I want it to be black. And that's going to be for the border. If anything is filtered, I want it to be otherwise, I want it to be green or transparent. So the fill, I'm going to basically go into the conditional formatting, field value, and select is filtered green. And for the border, I'm going to do the same conditional formatting, field value for is filtered black. And this way, this will basically disappear if nothing is filtered. I can remove these filters. So if nothing is filtered, that shape disappears. But if something is filtered, that shape pops up and kind of acts to tell me what it should be. So the width for the border, I'm making this 2, and the text I'm turning on, and the text is going to be the number of filters. Okay, it's white now. Let's make that text also is filtered black, the color of the text. Just go into field value or is filtered black. And that's basically it. I'm going to make this bold maybe. So we have this item here now, which shows 1 column is filtered, 2 columns are filtered, 3 columns are filtered. Pretty simple, straightforward way. You can take this one step further by adding 1 more card, making the card blank again. And you don't even have to make the card blank. We can put in the filters multi-line into the field. Oh, sorry, that's a slicer. Let's make the new card, not the slicer. All filters multi-line, we'll call this filters. We're going to go into properties, turn on tooltips, as well as turning off everything else. Callout values are turned off, background is turned off, in it's like the card as well as everything else. So when you hover over this, the filters actually shows up, and we can just go here And you can see that right now nothing's selected. So when you hover over it, it's like shows this. I think if you go to callout values, turn on values, and change this value to this, yeah, then it shows no filters, right? Okay, I'm not 100% sure why that text. Oh no, it's because values. I turned it on. Okay, so I can turn it off. It shows no filters. Great. So now if I have this selected this way, then it'll show the items that are being selected. And those are all of the different ways that I'd like to show you today that you can set up your different filters to show a whole bunch of different things. These are really simple techniques that take a little bit of time to set up, but once you do, you can pretty much reuse them. It's like however much you like. And the nicest thing about this is that, of course, using the, it's like DAX Studio, it's really easy to make this. You don't have to remember it at all. You can just use DAX Studio once and just get everything out there. Okay, so that was basically it. I really hope you learned something from here that you can use. This is, I think, a really nice UI detail that isn't so important, but can actually add a lot of value to, it's like your different end users. Thanks for watching and take care.